And we are back in our summer retreat, Dover, New Hampshire, for America's Mayor Live, because we are pumped up, despite the fact that we were on a red eye from Las Vegas. We're pumped up because of the great program put on by the hosts who run Gateway Pundit, because of the presence of so many of my friends who went through what I did or worse, and some that I didn't know and got to know. Some very famous people, some people that aren't famous, but it doesn't mean that their contribution and sacrifice wasn't equal to or greater than some of the others. And people who see, I'm not going to say we're like lockstep, we all agree on it. Who knows? We agree that our country went through something that only our founding fathers anticipated could happen. And that is a destruction of our rule of law, of our democracy as we know it, and of our common values as a Western civilization, a Western society. And I'm not going to say a Christian country, but a country that was founded by a group of people that disagreed about a lot of stuff, but was founded on the thought that our rights come from God. So what are we doing kicking God out? Which we're changing completely the type of government we are in order to fit ourselves into a communist, Marxist, anti-religious, anti-God framework. Oh, also anti-parent, anti-business, anti-successful people, no more billionaires except for the communists who are. So we're in quite a period of time, and if it weren't for groups like Gateway Pundit and many others, but they're one of the ballsiest. I don't know if we'd be as far. We wouldn't be as far along as we are. The speakers were inspiring. The subjects covered and the tasks laid out for us in advance, very, very challenging, but very rewarding. If you could spend your life doing this, you will have led a very, very good life. And you will have done something wonderful for your children and your grandchildren. You will have preserved what up until a few years ago was the greatest democracy the world has ever seen. Well, representative democracy. Well, there is actually, even in the dictionary now, two definitions of democracy. The very pure Greek formula, rule of the majority. And then the much more complex system that was developed over years and put to its finest use by our Constitution and our Bill of Rights, by Madison and Hamilton and so many others. That was virtually gone for many Americans for the last 4 or 5 years. And who predicted that? Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and many, many others of our founding fathers.
Well, let's just play one short little clip from this weekend.
It's nice of all you to come to watch America's Mayor live here on X and some of the other organizations from around the world and around the country. And we'll see what we're going to do from now on. Forget about it. So I did my Godfather imitation, which I don't do it much anymore. I used to do it. Back when I was U.S. attorney. And
we're gonna do the audio. We have that same clip with the audio, and that's when you were making the joke. So that is why you saw those smiles.
Some of them look at me like, "What the hell is he doing?"
But most people were laughing. You saw the smiles.
Yeah, but it takes a little while. I notice it's. I mean, I've done this joke 500 times, but it's really weird. Sometimes they don't laugh right away. They're looking at me. Does he really talk? Maybe that's his New York accent.
Yeah.
So I'll do it one time. If we have a light moment, I'll do a big portion of the show here. Talking like, okay. So what do you want to do now, Ted, or what?
You're right. That's like your unique. That's unique to your or what? Throwing that or what at the end.
What do you want to do tonight or what?
Yeah. There's some extra or what's on there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think we'll go to let's go to Coney Island and see if we can pick up some girls. All right.
How many hours of conversations with these guys?
I calculated that all came about. The deterioration of my ability to speak English came about from 4,000 hours of listening to these weasels talk like that with the big earphones on and with the old-fashioned equipment. This is back in the 1980s. This stuff is. I keep thinking, I wish we had this.
Yeah.
I think we're going to caught another couple hundred. Right. So
we'll play more from throughout the show and into tomorrow. We'll play more from our trip out west.
We will. So we brought everybody up to date on the Rudy Giuliani show on Ukraine, which I'll summarize very, very quickly in case you missed it. You shouldn't. You should watch that show too. So, this is a fascinating summit in that we can put down on a scorecard what the issues are, who's going to win, who's going to lose. It's does Russia get to keep everything that it illegally invaded Ukraine and took from them in violation of the agreement they made with them back in the 1990s? Does it get to keep all of that? Plus, this is their maximum going in with. Plus, the 1/3, they claim 1/3. It's really more like 20% more in 3 of the 4 provinces that they want, where they haven't captured the whole province. Do they get that? Plus, no security of any special kind for Ukraine. Ukraine cannot join NATO. It would be too unsettling for poor little Russia. And they can do nothing to defend themselves. Okay, if that's a peace agreement, I don't know what war is. The Ukrainians, on the other hand, feel that they shouldn't have to reward Russia, who illegally invaded them, have slaughtered a disproportionate number of their civilians, and they have fought valiantly to keep them from taking the whole nation and have succeeded in doing that with our help and with Europe's help, but with their lives. That they should not have to be required in violation of international law to give up any of their territory that was seized illegally. I mean, they want to try Netanyahu in the world court. Putin, whatever they're accusing Netanyahu of, which he largely didn't do, right? The other guys, Putin did 100 times over, including just this weekend, where in Zaporizhia And in Kherson, they killed children. So that's the Russian demand, and the Ukrainians feel that they should be given their territory back. They should be allowed over a period of time based on the rules of NATO to join NATO. And up until then, they should have help with regard to military forces from various parts of NATO or Europe helping to defend them against Russia the minute we stop just going right back in again. Like Russia wouldn't do that. So that's going to be the thing that Trump has to master. And then this question of if and when does Zelensky appear, which I think is critical that it be played the right way. Now, I can't even count the number of wars that Trump, in his very short period of time in office, has averted, stopped, changed. Now, I know, these aren't the wars that were on the front pages, but the war between Azerbaijan and Armenia, I'm very familiar with because I was in Armenia. When? 2019, I'd say. Maybe later than that. And I'm very, very familiar with that, the history of that. That's sort of the basis of that is not terribly different than the Turkish genocide or attempted genocide of the Armenian people. And it's really over the spread of the Muslim religion. The people of Azerbaijan are largely radical Muslims, and the people of Armenia are more Christian than Muslims, but it's a different kind of Muslim population. It's a peaceful Muslim population by and large, which they really have not done a terribly good job. I'm talking about Azerbaijan and all the crazy left-wing, not left-wing, Islamic terrorist groups. They've not done a particularly good job of changing the native Armenians. In other words, they haven't turned against their fellow Armenians based on religion, because it's a very, very strong country with its own national pride, its own national identity, and struggling with this issue since the day Muhammad decided to turn into a conquering murderer. So the president has settled that war, had him right in the White House shaking and smiling, and a couple of days before that, they might have knifed each other. And by the way, when I say that, these are tough people, like the Albanians. Whoa, I prosecuted Albanian organized crime. It makes everybody else look like sissies. They threatened to kill one of my assistant U.S. attorneys. And the FBI came to me and said, they just threaten to kill me all the time, whatever. They said, Mayor, I don't know how much you know about Albanian organized crime, but this is a blood oath. This is going to follow this guy and his family for 1,000 years. I go, come on. Well, we handled it, but it took a while. So this weekend, or Friday, actually, right? Friday, the president and Vladimir Putin are going to meet in Alaska, where if you're invited to Sarah Palin's house, you can see Russia from her windows. By the way, you can, kind of. What is it, 10 miles apart, 12 miles apart? And then you have those islands in between, Ted. Go take a look at the exact number. The islands make them like, if you do island hopping, I think one island is ours and the other island is Russia's. The islands, the first island, was it 10 miles from the shore, American shore? It's fascinating how close they are. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how Putin approaches this. I think the president has pretty much laid out what he's going to need to settle this in a way that enhances peace and doesn't encourage more war. And he is going to need Putin to be willing to make concessions and not try to act that he's achieved an unconditional victory in this war, because he hasn't. And the European nations now, unlike when the war began, are ready to assure him that he can't do that. They're ready to fight with him. So this is a very, very big job. Very, very big. I mean, he should get the Nobel Peace Prize, whether he succeeds in this or not. Because you succeed in this, whew, but he's settled like 3 or 4 wars already. Who the heck does that? He brings them in and he makes them shake hands. Well, and it would be very valuable had they done it now. It would have brought him into the whole situation that he's got to accomplish. There you go, Ted. That's very, very good. Now, do you have a reading on that little one chip to the other? Oh, Ted, it looks like they're talking to each other. Look at the Alaskan. Look at the Alaskan guy. Look at the mouth there. I hope you're all watching what I'm watching. This is not on my screen, so I can't do the pointing that I usually do. But do you see what I'm saying, Ted? Would you like to go up there with a pointer?
Absolutely. No, it won't. It's through the screen. I think we can maybe. No, a pointer wouldn't work in this situation.
But if you stood there, couldn't you just point?
No, if you circle it. Yeah.
No, you don't have to circle it. You just stand up there and point.
No, because it's playing through the screen itself. What do you want to point at? You want to point at something?
This is like when I used to think when I was a kid that the people on television were behind the television.
Oh, yeah. Like literally on the other side. And you could get in there somehow.
So if you look, I mean, I just think we got to keep that. We got to keep that shot. I love the way the American side, the guy is like talking to him, and the Russian side, the guy has his head down. It looks like he has his head down, like you're angry, right?
Yeah, it is interesting, right? Here's another one. This kind of shows more of the curvature of the Earth. Russia being green.
Well, we're going to take a short break as we look at the interesting aspects of the map. I hope you love geography. I hope you do. To really understand foreign policy and to make strong, very, very rooted decisions, you need to be an educated historian, and you need to be someone with a great knowledge of geography. And not just the physical aspects of it, but what that means and what's attached to that. And think about it. A lot of the disputes in the world have to do with 2 countries living near each other forever and ever. It sometimes creates tremendous friendships. It sometimes creates centuries of rivalry until a great man or woman comes along and is able to put it together. I think we have one in the White House. We'll be right back.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep green, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because they like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. They're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month,
Wow.
including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
U.S. Army Major Scott Smiley paid a high price serving our nation. Scott was leading his platoon in Iraq when a blast sent shrapnel through his eyes, leaving him blind and temporarily paralyzed. Scott would become the first blind active duty military officer before medically retiring years later. Thanks to friends like you, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation gave Scott and his family a mortgage-free, specially adapted smart home. Show your support for America's heroes now. Donate $11 a month to Tunnel to Towers at T2T.org.
Wow. Well, that's interesting, Mayor. We were just talking during the break. All of the interesting people that I get to meet by working with the mayors. Let's see if this is. I still have to adjust it a little bit, and we got to get a remote. I got to get some more light on
this
this.
is one of the best. You know, we've been working on this new camera and lights and all for Ted. That was one of the better.
Yeah, I agree.
One of the really nice shots.
We had to reset
So
from
when
scratch.
we go back to Florida, we have to do an equal kind of shot. We got to figure out how we do that.
Oh yeah, we've been
I've been
spoiled this
thinking
summer.
I've been having ideas about how we do it. But in any event, so you know, we went into the beginning of this administration with some pretty strong feelings that India was going to be a very, very strong partner. Modi and Trump hit it off. I mean, they get along really well. Modi is, I'm not going to say, well, in a certain way, he's controversial. A lot of people think he's too, I don't know if you would call him right, traditional, too old-fashioned, too, maybe, I'm not going to say dictatorial, but too commanding. A lot of things about Modi. I like Modi a lot. I'm just telling you the other side of it. But now we're really in a difficult situation with him because if it weren't for India and China, the war in Ukraine would be over because Russia wouldn't be able to conduct it. They'd stop killing innocent people in Ukraine. And I don't care if you're Russian or you're Chinese or whatever the hell you are. Why should these children be killed? I mean, it's the tail end of a war right now. This is a question of, I don't exactly know what Putin is delaying for. What does he think? They're going to give him all of Ukraine? That's ridiculous. Of course they're not.
Right.
Meanwhile, that'd be fine if it was just a matter of delay like it is sometimes in a business negotiation or whatever. But there are people who were alive a week ago that are dead today because Putin has done this. I don't know how God deals with that. It seems awfully serious. Crime, sin, a real indication of how you're missing something human. Is that because Putin was a communist, or is that because of his childhood? I don't know what it is.
Well, the president today had a very long, extensive press conference. Of course, being one of the most transparent and accessible presidents in American history. I think that's fair to say, correct, Mayor? That's fair to say.
Well, there's nothing. I mean, I don't think there's even a comparison.
Yeah. So let's hear some of his comments today pertaining
Please,
to
yeah,
Vladimir
please help.
Putin and Russia.
Very respectful that the president of Russia
Audio on that. No, here.
is coming to our country as opposed to us going to his country or even a third party place. But I think we'll have constructive conversations. Then after that meeting, immediately, maybe as I'm flying out, maybe as I'm leaving the room, I'll be calling the European leaders who I get along with very well. And, I have a great relationship, I think, with all of them. And I get along with Zelensky, but, I disagree with what he's done. Very, very severely disagree. This is a war that should have never happened, wouldn't have happened. But I'll be speaking to Zelensky. The next meeting will be with Zelensky and Putin, or Zelensky and Putin and me. I'll be there if they need. But I want to have a meeting set up between the two leaders. I was a little bothered by the fact that Zelensky was saying, well, I have to get constitutional approval. I mean, he's got approval to go into war and kill everybody, but he needs approval to do a land swap because there'll be some land swapping going on. I know that through Russia and through conversations with everybody to the good, for the good of Ukraine. Good stuff, not bad stuff. Also, some bad stuff for both. So there's good and there's bad. But it's very complex because you have lines that are very uneven. And there'll be some swapping. There'll be some changes in land. And the word that they will use is, they make changes. We're going to change the lines, the battle lines. Russia's occupied a big portion of Ukraine. They've occupied some very prime territory. We're going to try and get some of that territory back for Ukraine. But they've taken some very prime territory. They've taken largely ocean, in real estate we call it oceanfront property. That's always the most valuable property. If you're in a lake, a river, or an ocean, it's always the best property. Well, Ukraine, a lot of people don't know that Ukraine was largely 1,000 miles of ocean. That's gone. Other than one small area, Odessa, it's a small area. There's just a little bit of water left. So I'm going to go and see the parameters. Now, I may leave and say, good luck, and that'll be the end. I may say this is not going to be settled. I mean, there are those that believe that Putin wanted all of Ukraine. I happen to be one of them, by the way. I think if it weren't for me, he would not be even talking to anybody else right now. But I'm going to meet with him. We're going to see what the parameters are. I'm then going to call up President Zelensky and the European leaders right after the meeting, yeah. And I'm going to tell them what kind of a deal. I'm not going to make a deal. It's not up to me to make a deal. I think a deal should be made for both.
This is remarkable to see that. So, we've gone through so many years of history, and I'm sure that many of the people that watch this show are history buffs, right? And you think in the years to come, when they analyze this, however it works out, what an unbelievable insight they're going to get into the thinking of the president. And it's a wonderful gift for the American people that he brings you in. And I think it also, I know it does, it reminds him that he's a servant of the people. This isn't just about, what does Donald Trump think, or what does it's what does Donald Trump think after informing himself in every way that he possibly can about the will of the American people? And just listen to his description. It gives you goosebumps. I mean, it's what democracy is all about. When I say democracy, please, I mean democracy as defined in a Republican form of government. I don't mean Republican, political Republican. I mean Republican, the concept of you are represented through the people you elect.
That's right, Mayor. And so let's maybe play. This is Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky yesterday, and let's maybe hear from the man himself, to give you an idea of maybe where he's at as these negotiations continue to move forward.
Трамп оголосив про підготовку своєї зустрічі з Путіним на Алясці. Дуже далеко від цієї війни, яка триває на нашій землі, проти нашого народу, яку все одно не закінчити без нас, без України. Путін не вірив в наших людей, тому ухвалив це своє безнадійне рішення спробувати взяти Україну. Це було його головною помилкою – не зважати на українців. Я вірю в наших людей, бо українці сильні, українці захищають своє. Багато хто в світі став на бік України за час війни. Навіть ті, хто з Росією, знають, що вона чинить зло. Звісно, ми не дамо Росії нагород за зроблене. Український народ заслуговує на мир. Але всі партнери мають розуміти, що таке достойний мир. Цю війну треба закінчувати, і Росія має її закінчити. Росія її почала та затягує, не слухаючи ніякі дедлайни. І саме це проблема, а не щось інше. Відповідь на українське територіальне питання є вже в Конституції України. Відступати від цього ніхто не буде і не зможе. Дарувати свою землю окупанту українці не будуть. Україна готова до реальних рішень, які можуть дати мир. Будь-які рішення, які проти нас, будь-які рішення, які без України, вони одночасно і рішення проти миру.
Unrestricted fan of Zelensky with a lot of reservations about him. I can't possibly disagree with what he's saying. This was an unjustified, brutal attack on the Ukrainian people to do murder in order to recreate the fantasy of the empire of Peter the Great. I don't know what you'd call that. Kind of the impulses of some of the most evil people in the world, the dictators who determine what their worldview is and are willing to do. And once they determine that worldview, they believe that morality ends and anything is justifiable in pursuit of that cause. Out of control armies, raping, pillaging, lying, cheating, stealing, because the goal is so great. Our Western civilization analysis of that, the morality of that, which is enlightened by Judaism, Greek philosophy, Roman laws, and of course, very much overwhelmed by Christianity, is that a government and a victory obtained by massive lying and cheating and destruction of human rights is a government is a self-fulfilling prophecy. No such great government has ever been established that way. That's the way you establish a Nazi Germany. Or that's when you establish the versions of the Roman Empire that were purely dictatorial and homicidal. The Roman Empire is enormously complex. There's not one Roman Empire. There are many, fashioned by different, very strong-willed, whatever you want to call them. In some cases, emperors, in some cases, dictators, in some cases, the most prominent and most powerful of the three councils who led Rome. But Rome is a great example to study of, at times, governments established on, I'm not going to say moral principles, because there was always an underlying level of immorality, but on principles that were very far-sighted and that ultimately gave us a basis for who and what we are. And this is what's missing in communism and in socialism. It's an economic, it's a false, extremely narrow-minded, extraordinarily biased economic view of the world, and then a rearrangement of the world to and power and justification and morality and killing and raping and overwhelming by force. Putting that all aside in service of creating the great empire. This is what is happening in our contemporary world in Iran. And it is amazing to me. And it was, oh my goodness, from the day it started. From the day I read what the Ayatollah Khomeini, the first one, wanted to do, I said, we have to stop this. This can't happen in the modern world. You can't create an Islamic empire. The last Islamic empire, cut off so many heads you can't find them. So that's what we're facing on the one hand. On the other hand, we're facing the historical denouement. I use that word not to be a stuck-up pig and jerk like the people in the State Department, but because I'm going to define it for you. That's the climax that's the resolution of what the drama is all about. It isn't necessarily the end, but it's the resolution of what the drama is all about. And it is possible that I'm thinking about whether I'm right about this. It is possible that within our lifetime, my lifetime, let's say, because that's always, which means quickly, which means now, that war between two ideologies, communism, we'll call it, okay, socialism, communism, and what do we want to call ours? Western civilization, really, because it's much broader than just Christianity or democracy or Republican values, or it's our culture, it's our civilization, it's what we're about. And their culture, their civilization, and what they're about is a very, very strict communist regime in which from their point of view, the importance of what they're trying to achieve allows them to achieve it by any means possible. Which, without getting too complex, which means they've destroyed it to start with, because the minute you say with any means possible, it means you're going to construct something that oppresses other people. So we're coming to, in two places, kind of decision points there. So in Ukraine, we have to decide how much do we cave in, if at all, to a monster predator who went into a country where he or his predecessor had promised they wouldn't do this, and focused to a large extent on civilian populations to slaughter them, kill them, cower them, and try to take over all of Ukraine. Due to the support of Western governments, United States, but in this case, many, many others stepped up who've always been reluctant to really help. The Germans, the French, and then the others that aren't as reluctant, the English. Why all of a sudden have they become militaristic with regard to Russia? Because they realize that their civilization is at stake. We're going to change the premise on which the world is on which the world society, world law, world order functions. And it's a very, very big battle. So this meeting on Friday probably is the most important meeting an American president has had since Trump and Gorbachev at Reykjavik. And then we'd have to go back to the Roosevelt conferences with Stalin and with Churchill that set really the direction, right or wrong, for what we're living through even now.
So, well, Mayor, you know, we hear from Vladimir Putin from time to time, and maybe we'll play. This is from the end of 2024, but it was a question posed to him from a member of the Western media, the BBC. And I think while a few months old, it still can provide us with some insight on Putin's state of mind when it comes to Ukraine. So here's Putin just a few months ago.
Давайте и завершающий на сегодня вопрос. Я хотел бы дать BBC. Редкий гость в наше время Стив Розенберг.
BBC это вот в такой шапке, нет?
Спасибо большое. Я прочитал итоговую декларацию БРИКС, и там говорится о необходимости глобальной и региональной стабильности и безопасности и справедливого мира. И, в общем-то, девиз российского председательства БРИКС включает такие понятия, по-моему, да, вот справедливости и безопасности. Но как все это соотносится с вашими действиями вот последние 2,5 года, да, вот с вторжением российских войск в Украину, да, вот где справедливость, стабильность и безопасность, в том числе безопасность России, потому что до начала СВО не было ни атак дронов по российской территории, ни обстрелов российских городов, ни иностранных войск, оккупирующих российскую территорию. Этого не было. И последнее, как это все соотносится с заявлением вот недавно вот британской разведки о том, что Россия поставила перед собой цель сеять хаос на улицах Британии и Европы поджогами, диверсиями и так далее. Вот где стабильность? Спасибо.
Да. Значит, начну с безопасности России, потому что для меня это самое главное. Вы сказали про удары дронов там и так далее. Да, этого не было. Но была гораздо худшая ситуация. Ситуация заключалась в том, что нам на наши постоянные и настойчивые предложения наладить контакты и отношения с странами западного мира все время указывали на свое место. Вот я могу вам совершенно определенно это сказать. Так, вроде все ласково, но в принципе нам всегда показывали свое место. Значит, и это место в конечном счете привело бы нас к скатыванию России в разряд второстепенных государств, которые выполняют исключительно функцию сырьевых придатков. С потерей в известной степени и в большом объеме суверенитета страны. А Россия в таком качестве не только развиваться, она существовать не может. Россия не может существовать, если она теряет свой суверенитет. Вот в этом самое главное. И выход России из этого состояния, укрепление своего суверенитета и независимости в экономике, в финансах, в военном деле и означает повышение нашей безопасности. И означает создание условий для ее уверенного развития в будущем, как самостоятельного государства, полноценного и самодостаточного, с теми партнерами, каких мы имеем в БРИКС, которые уважают независимость России, уважают наши традиции и к которым мы относимся таким же образом. Теперь по поводу с точки зрения безопасности в целом. Что касается безопасности России, я уже сказал. Я понимаю, о чем вы говорите. Но разве справедливо с точки зрения безопасности годами игнорировать наши постоянное обращение к партнерам не расширять НАТО на восток? Разве справедливо врать нам в лицо, обещая, что такого расширения не будет, и нарушая взятые на себя обязательства делать это?
You know, a lot of people just talk about Putin and they don't allow him to explain himself. And I think in subsequent shows, we're going to have him explain himself even more. But I stopped it there because I think this is an easy one just to illustrate his way of thinking, okay? So he said, and this probably does go to the core of one of the reasons he invaded Ukraine. I think the overriding reason is, and this is Rudy Giuliani's interpretation, of which there are other interpretations, and a little bit different than the mainstream. I get annoyed when people say he wants to recreate the Soviet empire, because I think they miss what he's written. I do not believe he wants to recreate the Soviet empire. I believe he wants to recreate the Russian empire. And you say, well, what's the difference between the two? Well, millions of people are the difference between the two. If you want to simplify it into a caricature, you could say he doesn't want to be Stalin, he doesn't want to be Khrushchev, he doesn't want to be Lenin, he wants to be Peter the Great or Catherine the Great. What does that mean? That means, although I'm sure he'd take Poland if he could have it, he's not bloodthirsty for Poland. Poland has never been part of the Russian Empire. It's a different ethnic group, a different religion, a different group of people. But he is bloodthirsty for Ukraine, or right north of it, Belarus, or right south of it, Moldova. Because to a very large extent, they were part of the Tsar's Russia. And what I'm telling you, he has written for no apparent purpose other than to explain himself. I don't think it was a created rationale. I think that's what the man wants to do. The problem is he then approaches it with the morality of a communist, which is anything is justified in pursuit of what I believe is his great moral goal of putting together this wonderful empire, which, by the way, wasn't so wonderful. Could have been almost as oppressive as communism, was brutal, and people were dying of starvation under most of the czars of Russia. But okay, we'll say he's myopic on that. But please understand, you winning a war and winning a negotiation, assuming you've got the guts to push forward your position, is accurately understanding the position of the other person. What does he really want? And what is secondary to that? So that's what he really wants. He wants Ukraine above all else. Ukraine is, for him, a tremendous defeat for the sovereignty of the Russian Empire. They've always been subjugated to Russia. It's been an entire millennium of Russian domination, which they would say was perfectly fine because the Ukrainians are Russians, and from the Ukrainian point of view of servitude that was imposed on them because they are not Russians. They come from a very different original source. Their view of religion, although they're both Christians, are significantly different. And they're their own people and want to be their own people. So that's an extremely difficult thing to work out in a negotiation like this, where both of them can see that how they decide this may very well create the future map. Now, let's get beyond this and look at the United States. What's good for the United States? What's good for the United States is a contained Russia, a Russia that will take his megalomania and begin to contain it into how about being satisfied with what you got and just exploiting it correctly. Now, Putin isn't there right now. So exactly what's going to work with him and how it's going to work and how you're going to get him to give back the territory that he seized or make a fair trade. Well, can the president achieve that, Ted? Is that a realistic goal? It's really the only goal, but is it a realistic one?
I think if we've had if a president in recent memory were able to make significant progress in that end goal, in a meeting in how this seems to be coming together, I have more faith in President Trump than anyone in recent history. But our work's cut out for us. When I say us, America. But I will say I have so much faith and trust in our current commander in chief. With that being said, my goodness, it just seems like Putin's been dictating a lot of the terms, not over President Trump, but within the wider world. I think President Trump is one person who's standing up to him, but it just shows how tough and precarious a situation we have.
Well, I mean, it's a very unique situation. And what's involved is very, very important. This is, as I said, the most important meeting. And I would actually, but I don't want to get you into the point where you think I'm exaggerating this, like the Democrats did when they said that, the situation on January 6th was Pearl Harbor, or it was the American Revolution, or it was 9/11, or I don't want you to think I'm getting hysterical about this. So if you could put down 4 or 5, 6 major meetings that could have had impact on the future of this country in a very, very substantial way, this is one of them. As I said, the last meeting of this importance was Trump and Gorbachev at Reykjavik in Iceland, in which Gorbachev told them, you have to give up. The demeaning term was Star Wars. The real term was nuclear defense. Now, why did he want us to give up nuclear defense? Because he couldn't do it. The scientific and practical things that needed to be done so they could catch up to us were not available to them. And it was enormously expensive. And they were going through tremendous poverty at the time. Now, all of what I just told you was imposed on them by sanctions, by limited military actions. They were put in that desperate position. And eventually he agreed. And now we have it almost seems like the same. He said, well, that worked really well for a long time. It avoided war. It created a reduction in nuclear armaments, but they still can destroy the world, and so can we, and possibly China. So are we back where we were? But no, we're not. Russia is a very different enterprise than it was when we were dealing with it at the time of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and even into the dissolution of the Soviet Union in the 1990s. It's confused. It's in a state where it doesn't know what it is itself, which is very dangerous. but it's not. That danger has been dissipated. So
That's right, Mayor. And one of our loyal listeners, Gary Steele, makes a good point. And this is a good question for you, Mayor. And that question is, can we look to the Soviet Union's abject failure, right, with Afghanistan back in the 1980s, and how they just got bogged down there, as Gary says, correctly points out in the comment section? Can we glean anything from that, or was that a different time, a different government? I mean, Vladimir Putin may have learned from that. What can we glean from that when we look at the situation in Ukraine?
that's who asked that question?
Gary Steele. Shout out to Gary Steele.
From where?
Gary, where you're from? But he's in our comment section. He's a regular, one of our top viewers. He helps
Gary,
us.
that's a very, very prescient, very, very smart question. And it would require like about a 45-minute answer, which I will.
We all want you to save your voice, Mayor.
Which I will confine to about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
The reality is that we don't know. We don't know. We're going to find out. Part of what's going to happen, which is remarkable, over the next couple of weeks, is we're really going to find out how has Russia changed since it was the Soviet Union, and how deep have those changes become. The analysis so far by Putin is all opportunistic. It's all based on Russia being a very strong power and Russia getting what it wants and Russia getting what it wants now. But if he's got to be faced with how does Russia really fit into a world in which you just can't go in and try to take away a country from somebody else, and you got to pay consequences for that. Is he willing to accept some power greater than him? That there's a power greater than just Russia. He claims to be a Christian. He claims to believe in God and in Jesus. He sure doesn't act that way. In the way that he is now needlessly taking human life. He's getting to be an older man. He cannot achieve the glories that he wanted to achieve in his earlier life, which I think is to win back, and I told you, the Russian Empire, not necessarily the wider Soviet Union. He's not going to achieve that between now and the day he dies. But the big prize in all that is Ukraine. If you had to say to yourself, what's critical to recreating the Russian Empire from the Russians' point of view, it's taking Ukraine and solving that 1,000-year dispute between, is Ukraine part of Russia or is Ukraine a separate country? Or let's get deeper than that. Is Ukraine its own, who brought Christianity to the East? Was it Ukraine or was it Rus? Was it Moscow or Kiev? And that's what's going on in his complex mind. This is not a simple man. This is not a man who's unaware of history. He sees it in his own light, his own way. This is a man with too little respect for human life, if any, which is a real problem here and why we can't really calculate how this is going to come out. But I think Trump's goal is very, very simple. And I do believe it comes down to an easier thing for me to describe after all of these complex thoughts. The only thing bullies understand is power. The only thing I've ever, and if we think of the bully in the street or the bully running a government, because of how they conduct themselves, which is based on just power, if you confront them with more power that's going to embarrass them, you back them down. And I think we'll win this if there comes a point at which Trump hits him with everything we have, short of a war. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is every sanction imaginable. The goal being use every sanction that puts his economy in complete chaotic ruin and stick to it and enforce that the way you would enforce a D-Day landing. Because if you crush him economically, you will crush him. And he will agree, or somebody who takes over for him. And without going into great detail, because we're getting late, we can accomplish that. You know, we've been the strongest military in the world since the Second World War, for sure. We still are the strongest military in the world, with some slide backs toward China, right? But we're still the strongest military in the world. But to assert that power risks a world war. I believe this is true, but economists can dispute this. I think the gap economically between us and the rest of the world in terms of our economic power is even greater than the gap with regard to our military power. And it is safer to exercise because of our, not safer to exercise because if we were just a normal country, if you try to do that, they'll go to war against you. But safer to exercise because we're both. So if we assert ourselves economically and put burdens on you economically, since we're also the strongest military power, how are you going to contest us? Unless you want to blow up the world. And only Russia can do that. I don't know that China can even do that. It could, possibly. Let's not discount it because you can't make a mistake about this. But all this nuclear stuff they're talking about, they're not talking about a United States. They're not talking about a former Soviet Union or even a China, maybe. They're talking about countries like Israel and India and Pakistan that have tactical nuclear weapons that can do great damage. But they're not going to take us off the globe. So we're the only two. And the question is, are we not just militarily stronger than, but economically stronger? And we are, and by more. And that has to be exercised. And I believe if it is, we turn Khrushchev. And I'm a little concerned that we've waited so long to do that. The sooner the better. The reason I say that is I think there's no prospect that he was going to become reasonable in the interim. And nor is he going to be sure we're willing to do it until we do it. Since it would require such a big readjustment for them, he wants to make sure that we've got the guts to go ahead with it. What I mean by that is secondary tariffs are a good way to look at it, right? So basically, by a secondary tariff, you're literally stopping them from trading with anybody. They can't sell a damn thing. Now, will 25% get through or 30%? But suppose only 25 or 30% of what we wanted to sell got through. We'd be pretty well devastated, wouldn't we? And we're a hell of a lot stronger economy than they are. So I'm sitting here anxious to see that happen because I think that will create a material change in Russia. And they will become much more reasonable about, yes, we'll give back some land. Yes, we'll allow them to protect themselves. How can we not? And I think on the other side of the equation, Iran will see some movement, but for totally different reasons. Because here's the difference with all the bad things we've said about Khrushchev, and he's a bad man. He's a very smart, rational man. kind of warped by his lack of morality. But you see in that, just that little analysis we saw, this is a very smart man, very conniving. You wouldn't want to play chess with him. What do you think, Ted?
All I can say is, Mayor, thank goodness we have President Trump in office. All I could think of as I'm watching Putin speak, imagine having the guy that was in the office from 2021 to 2024.
Oh, come on.
I just thank the Lord that President Trump is here.
That'd be a negotiation against a committee. Behind the not even, God forbid, they were behind the flag, behind the Chinese flag.
Yeah. With an auto pen.
Who knows what that would be? And also a group that negotiates against America.
So
I remember when I think back on my history with Trump, I can remember Trump complaining about trade agreements. I was the mayor or running for some. I didn't pay attention to all these trade agreements.
Yeah.
So I'd be with him at a ball game or something, and all he wanted to do was complain about some trade agreement. And even back then, I would walk away with my friends, and they would say, "Gee, he's not what they describe." He was very popular, but he was seen as, I'm not going to say it. Yeah, he was seen as a playboy, and he was not a playboy. This is a guy that went home at night.
Doesn't drink, doesn't do drugs.
No, and when he went to these parties, I'm going to tell you, I'm sure it's true even with Epstein. He went to take the picture to help the brand, and within about 3 minutes, he was in the limo on the way home, going home to watch the end of a Knicks game, or to watch the end of a Giant game, or to watch a replay of a golf tournament, or to be with his kids. Now, here's the best proof of that. How the hell do you think those kids turned out to be so good? Given the pressure on them of all the crazy things that happened in his life and divorces and everything. Because he and his wives, to their eternal credit, were good parents. Whether it's Ivana or Marla, or of course the First Lady, very different people. I don't know how they would view my saying this. I hope in a way that is very admiring, and they were able to put their children first. And so stuff this down your liberal stupid head. So was he. Unlike, let's say, Joe Biden. So we've got about as great a champion as we can have going in and negotiating with us for us.
That's right.
We've got a man who is as good at negotiation as you can be. We also have a man, we don't know the depths of his, also a man who's very, very competent, capable, and not quite the negotiator that Trump is. Because when you're a dictator, you got an extra thing that really doesn't matter how you negotiate. You can always whip him and win. Well, he's not going to whip Trump and win. He's not going to whip the United States and win. He's going to have to really negotiate. And let's see if we can't get him to where we want him. He has to be aware of the fact that he's getting older, and there aren't going to be too many more opportunities to set his legacy. If I don't know him well enough to know if that's important to him, but if it is, you might see some degree of him being more reasonable than he's posturing. But we'll find that out. And this is about as fascinating a thing, an event that has happened in, oh gosh, I don't know. I think since Reykjavik, but.
Well, we certainly didn't have any sort of meetings like this with the last guy in office.
Oh, this would be so far beyond him, it would be impossible.
We'd be quite concerned. So going.
Let's let's go through the things we have left over real quick so we can send them over to Dr. Maria and we can see how does she look after her all-night plane trip.
Yeah, people.
I bet she looks beautiful. Tehran has arrested 20 Mossad spies. MEK, how many were you involved with? Boy, if you guys don't support MEK, you're out of your effing minds. All you're doing is giving in to the left wing, the left wing boilerplate and brainwashing, and kind of read up about them and see what they're doing, see what they stand for. Only 150 Republicans and Democrats in Congress agree with me. I said Republicans and Democrats. We covered the 5 points of Netanyahu, all of which make sense, right? And we showed you where things are going on the map, where things are going in Ukraine, and we've also done the same. Did we do that with Gaza? Oh, do you want me to get the map out? No, I saw you mentioned the map. It's on me. Oh, it is? Oh, there it is. I got to close it because I have a low battery. But, so put it on, put it on. I circled it before. You see that? That's what this is all about. So Israel has, let me see. Got to make sure I got this right here. Oh, there's such a thing as power nowadays. So I can't, oh, maybe I can do it with my finger. I can't. Well, in any event, you see the circle. That is the area of Gaza where the Israelis feel they don't have sufficient control to make sure that there aren't very, very dangerous, lethal Hamas killers hidden away in the tunnels and therefore after a peace, they could do tremendous terrorist damage to whatever authority or whatever takes over. So right now they're trying to wipe that out. That's their last remaining. But if they're forced to have to pull out without wiping it out, they want the ability to have control to the extent of keeping the peace in Gaza with a civilian government that is controlled by, they say, Arabs or America or whatever. The purpose of this is not to impose on them. The purpose of this is to protect them. I mean, a year ago or 2 years ago, that whole place was filled with people that wanted to come over the border and slaughter your children and your women. And they did. And you want to make sure it doesn't happen again. It's as simple as that. If you want to analyze what Bibi is trying to accomplish, that's it. What's the UN trying to accomplish? Something evil. And what the UN is trying to do is to try to create a crisis point that will fit into our moving to one world, and eventually, whether they agree with it or not, and many of them do, many of them don't, communism. I think we covered Zelensky and Trump and all the decision making there ad nauseum.
Well,
if you didn't put it off, I love you.
Well, Mayor, I one more question here.
It means you're as intellectually dense as I am.
Yeah. We got to save your voice. We got a big week ahead. We got to check in on these Texas Democrats. Are they still AWOL? Where the hell are they? I believe they're still out of the state at last check.
So the European leaders are picking on Witkoff, and they say that he may have misrepresented Russian strongman Vladimir Putin's conditions for bringing about peace. I don't know. I think they're going after Steve here unfairly. I think he adequately displayed. They don't like. I agree with them. They don't like what Putin put forward. It's absurd. It's like an insult. It's like, I want unconditional. How am I going to negotiate? Fine, give me everything. But I don't see how I mean, maybe I miss it. I don't see how Steve misrepresented it. Here, I think he's suffering from having to be the messenger. And I really do think a little less personal attacks here, when we have to be on the same side, would be good. Be a good idea. And also, Europe, if you think you're going to settle this on your own, you're out of your effing mind. You're just not powerful enough to do it. But you should know, and we'll conclude with this. I want you to keep this in mind. And then I want you to pray for these people. While all of this is going on, all the work toward peace, Moscow, just 2 days ago, or was it yesterday? One or the other, launched 47 Shahed-type drones and 2 missiles at the city of Kherson, which is a critical city that's a little beyond the area that they control. That's the area they want Ukraine to just give them as a reward for their wonderful attack, slaughter, and destruction of the Ukrainian people, including many of their children. It is partially Russian occupied, but not completely. It's right near Crimea, so it's really important to them. A disproportionate number of the battles have been fought there in Kherson. And here we are discussing peace and trying to work out peace. And they use a drone and missiles, killing 2 civilians, injuring 19 people, including police officers. And as Zelensky correctly said, this is how Russia wants peace. An attack on a civilian bus in the suburbs of Kherson, where Russians hunt civilians every day, attacking buses, the sign of a terrorist enterprise. That may be what Putin has become in his megalomania. And Ted and I both have eminent confidence in Trump's ability to do this. But this will be his greatest challenge. And the result here is going to have a lot to do with how fast we move on to a peaceful world. I don't know if you understand how important this is, this meeting on Friday. I'm not exaggerating one bit. So we're going to pray now. We're going to pray for the people who I mean, we're talking here in a certain way, intellectually, academically, important, because you got to know where you're going. But there are people on the line here who are dying, suffering, starving. We met, as I said, we met two of them. We'll get you that video for tomorrow night so you can see this wonderful young couple. And maybe we'll try to get some people in Ukraine over the course of this week to talk to you as well. But they're the one at the point of the spear, not us. So let's pray for them. And let's pray for the people of Israel, because although we have had as much time to discuss that, they're in a similarly precarious situation. And the people of Iran, who I believe the opportunity exists to give them freedom if we take advantage of it aggressively. And let's pray for people of the United States and, of course, our great president, because he would be the first one to admit it's the guidance of God that gives him the strength that he has. He wouldn't be here without God. He knows that. So we'll see you back tomorrow night. I guess we live in very complicated times. But isn't that better? If you can think you have an impact on where this world is going and how to improve it. So thank you, God. We pray for your guidance. We can't accomplish any of this without you. And with Ronald Reagan smiling over my shoulder, see, I get it wrong. It's reversed over that shoulder. and the Blessed Mother over here, and our Lord and Savior. And then next to them, we got to get that out of that stupid jerk, Rudy.
We got to add some more. You know, we were
Let's
just in
say-
Nevada and Arizona.
Let's say, God bless America, and go. Can I finish? Go right now. Now, right now. Where are you going to go? Tell them.
Lindell TV.
Lindell TV. Lindell TV. For Dr. Maria.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply